Okay. Our guest speaker today is the founder of Peace Builders of Orange County, a grassroots community of over 1,000 members dedicated to bringing people together across diverse backgrounds. Her work focuses on fostering connection, encouraging dialogue, and creating spaces where people can find common ground and build more compassionate communities. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Pederson.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. Before I say anything, I just want to begin with something simple. Just take a moment and look around, look at your neighbor, look across the aisle, look into the eyes, the face of those who are in this room this morning. Not what we believe, not what we think, not what side we're on, just people. Different lives, different stories, different experiences. And yet, here we are in the same space at the same time. The act alone is actually quite rare these days, because most of the time we don't actually stop to see each other this way. We see opinions first, labels first, assumptions first. And that makes me wonder something. What would change if we actually saw each other first as human? Keep that question with you, because that's what I want to explore with you today. And for me, that question didn't stay abstract. It followed me into conversations, into community spaces, into moments where people felt disconnected and unheard. And eventually, it led me to take a step. Back in 2017, next slide, please. Sorry.
Do you want me to screen share?
Back in 2017, I founded Peace Builders of Orange County. But the truth is, it didn't start as a movement. It started as that question. What would have happened if we simply brought people together? Because for me, this didn't start as an idea. It started much earlier. When I was a kid, I grew up in a single-parent home. My mother worked 3 jobs until she could get enough money together to go back to school. She would eventually get her LPN, and then she would go and become a registered nurse. But in those early years, we lived in a trailer park with not a lot of conveniences. And I saw firsthand how much people carry and that others never took the time or were able to see for themselves. But here's what I remember most. I never felt shame. Instead, I felt community. We didn't have much, but we had each other. People looked out for one another, they shared what they had, and they showed up for one another. And that stayed with me for my entire life, because even as I got older, I started paying attention to what care actually meant. What it meant about people, about connection, about something bigger than us, something that felt larger than just everyday life. Something I didn't have the words for at the time because I'm still too young to articulate. I would go to church with my adopted grandmother when my mother was working, which was pretty much every single weekend. So every weekend I went to church with her, and she was a Catholic, so we'd either go Saturday evening or Sunday morning, But I remember the moment that I gave my life over to God. It wasn't in a complicated way. It was just in a simple feeling of wanting to be of service, to be used in a way that helped other people. And even though I was just a child, and like I said, we didn't have very much, but I always made the promise that one day when I was able to stand on my own 2 feet, and be able to give, that I would be that person, that I would give and be of service. And even though I don't hold that same belief in a deity today, it's much different involved, that question has never left me. It's a question I ask myself and I put out to the universe several times a year. How can I be of service? Because I have everything that I need and want, but I still have that part of me that wants to do so much more. And it's mainly because I do that because I love seeing people come together. I love seeing people happy, and just importantly, I love seeing good things happen to other people because that's what makes my heart smile. That's what makes my heart fill with joy and feel full. So when I started Peace Builders of Orange County, it wasn't about fixing the world. It was simply bringing people together, creating space for connection, and doing simple things like random acts of kindness that reminds us we're not alone. And in those moments mattered, they still do, but I began to realize something was happening in those moments that I hadn't fully understood yet. Something quieter, but just as powerful, and maybe that's why listening started to matter much more to me than actually saying or doing. Next slide, please. You know, I waited for you to start drinking.
Got me drinking on the job.
At that time, I believe activism meant speaking out, raising your voice, taking a stand. And it does, but over time, something shifted. I realized that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is not speak louder, but to listen more deeply. Next slide, please. I remember showing up at a protest one day where two groups of people stood on opposite sides of the street. Same city, same moment, same planet, and yet it felt like two completely different worlds. Because before we ever met each other, we're often introduced through something else, through headlines, through video clips, through posts that show us the loudest moments and the most extreme voices. The moments that confirm what we've already been told, and over time, those messages start shaping a story about who one another are. That we're different, that they don't understand, that they're the problem. And yet that story too. So when I showed up that day, I didn't just start to see people. I saw what they had represented because that's how my opinion formed through social media and the news. And I didn't quite see them as human. I went in thinking that they were wrong, that I was right, and I needed to change their minds. There was that quiet voice, and I'm sure each of you have that quiet voice within yourself too, that says, stay on your side. Don't make it awkward. They're probably not like you. Maybe you felt that too. I don't know, but something unexpected had happened. I paused, and I thought, what if the story I've been told isn't the whole story? So instead of staying where I was, I walked across the street. I stood with them, and I started a conversation. The first people I spoke with were a married couple, somewhere in their 60s. They told me that one of their children had stopped talking to them because of how they saw the world differently than them. And I could tell you, I could feel how deeply it hurt, or at least that's what it felt like to me in that moment. And then they shared something else. They were scared of losing something they cared about, of a world changing in ways that they didn't understand or no longer felt a part of. And it made me realize how easily fear can grow within each and every single one of us. I heard their story, and in that moment, I realized something. I hadn't crossed the street to change their minds. I had crossed the street to see them. And suddenly, I wasn't standing across from an issue anymore. I was standing next to people. People who in some ways weren't that different from me. And in that moment, I saw it again. That same truth I learned years ago, that people are caring more than what we can see. Pain, fear, love. And most of the time, we don't stop long enough to see it, or we don't have, it's not because we're bad people, maybe we don't have the time, or we have things going on in our own lives. But their future and what they were holding on to was what mattered most to them. And they were trying to make sense of a world, just like I was. And it made me realize something deeper. If connection can happen there, in the middle of a disagreement, in the middle of uncertainty, in the middle of fear, then maybe it's possible anywhere. Not because everything changes overnight, but because something shifts in how we see each other. And maybe that world we're hoping for doesn't start out there somewhere. Maybe it starts in moments like this. But if that's true, why does it feel like we're moving further apart from one another? And maybe part of it is this. We don't always see the value in listening to someone who thinks differently than we do. It can be uncomfortable. It can feel like we're giving up something or risk being misunderstood. But what I've come to realize is this. When we don't listen, the distance grows. The stories get louder, and the fear fills in the gaps. But when we do listen, even for a moment, something shifts. That distance now softens. And we start to see each other not as sides, but as people. Next slide, please. Because right now, we're living in a time where division feels loud. We're constantly being told through social media and the news that we're different, as if we're on opposing sides. And sometimes it can almost feel like that separation is being reinforced. And not just that, we often are shown the loudest voices, the most extreme opinions, the moments where people clash, not where they connect. We're fed stories that simplify people into categories, labels, sides. And over time, it becomes easy to believe that they are completely different from us. If you listen closely, both sides are being told something very similar about the other side. That something they love is at risk, that their voice isn't being heard, and that no one is truly, really listening to them. And that other side is a threat. And when you believe that, division doesn't just happen, it feels necessary. Next slide. And when that happens, we lose something. We lose our curiosity, we lose our empathy, we lose our connection. Next slide. But here's what I've seen again and again. When people come together, when they sit in the same space, when they truly listen, something changes and there is a shift, and those divisions begin to soften. Because underneath it all, we share more than we realize. We all want to feel safe. We all want to feel seen. We all want to feel like we belong. We care about our families. We worry about our future. And we hope for something better. So what do we do with that? We don't need to solve everything today, but we can take one step. Start one conversation, listen, be curious about the person who's there beside you. Show up, be present in that moment instead of looking at your scrolling through your cell phone or wondering what's happening across the street. Because change doesn't start somewhere. It starts with each and every single one of us. This is what we've been building. Not perfection, not agreement, but connection. And the truth is, this isn't something any one of us can do alone. This is something that we build together. Next slide. So I want to leave you with this. The next time you encounter someone who thinks differently than you, pause, take a breath, and instead of asking, how are we different? Ask, what might we share? Maybe it's a love for someone. Maybe it's a fear we don't often say out loud. Maybe it's a hope for something better. And if you stay there, even just a little longer, you might begin to see you're not as far apart as you thought on some things, and sometimes that's where the connection begins. One more. We don't build stronger communities by pushing each other apart. We build them by choosing connection again and again. And if connection is something we choose, then it's also something that we carry. Something we bring into every conversation, every interaction, into every moment. Because in the end, it's not the labels we carry or the sides that we're told we're on, it's how we choose to see each other. So the next time you find yourself standing across from someone, remember, they are not the story you've been told. They are a person. And sometimes all it takes is one step toward each other across the street. Will you help me build that? Before I wrap up, I'd like for us to try something together. It's nothing complicated, it's just a few simple words. And because if we want to build a world rooted in connection, it has to start within us. So I'm just going to say a short, 3 simple words. You can also find them up there. So I'll go ahead and I'll say it, and then you'll repeat it back, and we'll do this 3 times. Ready? All right. I am love.
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 And if we can remember that and how we see each other and how we show up, maybe the most powerful thing we can do is simply take the time to truly see one another. Thank you.
What a great message, Lisa. Thank you so much.